Live from New York, it's Ask an Engineer.
Hey everybody, and welcome to
Engineers.
Welcome everybody to Ask Engineers. It's me, Ladyada, with me, special guest, Jeff Appler, also known as the Jeppler, a core CircuitPython contributor and otherwise good guy.
And our first guest of the year.
And our first guest of the year, fully vaccinated. Also, Mr. Ladyada on camera control and looking sad. Very good at it. Don't ask him to smile.
That's right.
We've got an exciting show for you tonight. 1 hour of cool coding, engineering, Python, hardware products, and more.
It's also Star Trek Day.
It's also
so you're just
Star
going to
Trek
have to deal
Day.
with it.
That's good. Anybody have any recommendations for Terry Pratchett books? I haven't read any. Put it in the chat. Just tell me the one to read. Not this one necessarily. Just give me the one, okay? Yeah. That's all I'm asking. All right, let's kick it off. What's on tonight's show?
On tonight's show, the code is Tower Light. 10% off in the Adafruit store all the way up to 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, that's nice.
That's nice, right? Okay. Like Tower Light.
Beep, boop, beep,
boop. You want this, you need this, Tower Light. Get 10% off in the Adafruit store for anything in stock, including Tower Light. We'll talk about our Adafruit Live Series shows, including show and tell. We had some guests and more. Time travel, looking around the world of makers, hackers, artists, engineers, news, stuff like that. Main New York City factory footage. Jeff, you got to see the factory here live, but people get to see
it. It was
Is it
great.
real?
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
real.
And people get to see some of the videos. We have a neat one that we made this week. Some 3D printing from Noam Pedro. We have Ion MPI. New products. We got some top secret, really neat top secret. We'll answer your questions. We do that over on Discord. Adafruit.it/Discord, where you can join all 30,000 of us. The 24/7 hackerspace that you can bring anyone to. I think that's the tagline.
It's true.
All that and more on, you guessed it,
You're welcome.
Ask an Engineer. Okay, Ladyada. So we have the discount code,
Yes.
which is Tower Light.
Tower Light.
Yeah, but we
Or
also
two
have
Whirl Icht.
yeah,
It's German.
Yes.
we also
Free
have free stuff. Yeah.
It's true. When you order from Adafruit.com, you get free stuff. Also order from our distributors, of course. Support them. But when you order from us, we can give you free stuff. Like $99 or more, you get a free Pro and Proto half-size breadboard PCB with this beautiful silk screen. $149 or more, you get a STEMMA QT board. One of many options. We've got about 20 different boards we're giving away. You'll get a random one unless you make an account, in which case we'll make sure that you get an arbitrary one that is not one you already have. $199 or more, you get free UPS ground shipping in the continental United States, and $299 or more, you get my favorite circuit board of all times I've ever designed, the Circuit Playground Express SAMD21 board that works with code.org, CS Discoveries, CircuitPython, Arduino, MicroLisp, MakeCode. I think they're using MicroPython support now. All that stuff with all the sensors and buttons and LEDs and everything already built in, so you don't even have to solder. Just plug it in and go.
All right. We just did some live shows. Actually, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Jeppler.
Ladyada has a favorite Adafruit board, which is a Circuit Playground Express. Do you have a board that you like to use a lot?
I mean, I think I'm going to pick the Clue because I came on board when we were doing NRF 52840, and there's a lot of fun stuff about that board. It's kind of a rival to Circuit Playground because it's got all the sensors. But
I like it as a screen, and I feel like, you know, everything is a battery and a screen at some
It's
point.
adorable that it's like little, and I love the little REPL shows up and it's like, hi, I'm alive, I'm a Clue.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's got all the
I like
stuff built in.
All right,
fun.
so we did some live shows. We just got finished up with the show and tell.
Go watch it.
We had Adafruit folks.
Synthesizers. Randy Serafan showed off his book.
Yeah, Kevin talked about the
Kevin talked
Hackaday contest.
Including how to get double your money.
Get double your money.
Yeah,
Double your money.
and we had Randy, who I've known sort of forever. Just
We've known him forever.
from being, like I said in the beginning, it was like a maker fixture because Instructables is kind of where we all started putting our projects before there was no Adafruit learning system a long time ago. I know it seems like it's a utility and it's around forever, but
There was a time when it didn't exist.
we didn't have it.
Yeah.
So check
Still
out
at
Randy's book,
Instructables.
No Starch Press, Homemade Robots, and it has all the things, all the junk around your house you can turn it into a robot.
Yes.
And there's the link in Discord. Thank you, Mr. Certainly.
Yeah, thank you. On Sundays, we do Desk of Ladyada. We hung out on Sunday,
It was fun.
and then right after we hung out, we did this show. What did you show in part one this week, Ladyada?
Okay, so I showed how I STEMMA QTify a board because it was something I had to do anyways. We have been taking. Look, I'm very thoughtful.
You're not looped in this one.
No, this is cool.
You're thinking deeply.
No, this is good. Good work, me thinking. You know, we have all these sensor boards that we've designed for like a decade, and now we're putting all of our boards into STEMMA QT format, which is quick compatible with SparkFun Standard. I'm trying to make everything like the same size, as nice, 0.7 inch by 1 inch shape with 2 connectors on the side for solderless use. People really love that format, but we still have to go through, and there's old sensors that I'm trying to like revise into this modern format. And, I'm kind of getting, I did some of the popular ones, I did some of the unpopular ones, and I did the MPL 31158.2, which is an older barometric pressure sensor altimeter, but one that we still sell a couple hundred of a month, and so I figured it was a good time to kind of refresh it. And it also shows how I use you get template file, and then I modify the file with copying parts over from one Eagle file to another. One of the really nice things at Windows is you can have 2 copies of Eagle open. Apparently you can't do that on a Mac.
That is something that's different than Windows, because you can have multiple
I
copies
love
of the
that.
same app.
I have 3 copies of Arduino open sometimes, one for each board I'm working on. Like I'll have one with the Uno, one with like the Teensy, one with RP2040, because I'm trying out code in different ones, or like I'm working on a project that has multiple chips. I can't imagine not being able to do that.
Jeff, you're on Linux, right?
Yeah.
What are you running on your laptop? I glanced over and I saw that you
yes,
had something
so-
that doesn't work with with sound, right? Like,
Yeah.
I run Debian.
okay, that's your flavor.
That's my flavor. They respect freedom a lot. They value that, and I don't know. I do things in Xterm and VI and things like that. I'm the old neckbeard type of computer user.
One thing
I still run XEmacs on Windows, and it's like a total crime, but I can't
Oh
help
yeah,
it.
XEmacs. Wow.
I run XEmacs. I'll tell you why. Because I actually was wondering, like, why do I run it? And I was like, I'm going to try Atom, try VS Code. It can open a, 40 megabyte file in 0.1
True.
seconds and scroll and search through the entire thing nearly instantaneously.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's
Which
these
is
things have been
amazing, by the way, to open up a file, and it doesn't do that weird, Atom, I'm thinking, I'm Electron. It doesn't do that. Instant open, and I can go immediately to what I need to edit. Instant.
Vim's pretty good too.
Yeah, well, whatever. But hard to argue that.
One thing, because a lot of folks probably know Jeff from the CircuitPython community, but we have an internal Slack, and we're all doing stuff at Adafruit. Jeff's one of the few people that reads a lot of the same stuff I do in the open source community, and that's how I know that it was going to be fun to work with, because I'm like, okay, cool, you're reading all the same stuff. You like open source, because you never know when you start to work with folks. You're definitely one of the people that values and cherishes open source and all this.
But he also recognizes how ridiculous it is, which I think is, you have to be able to laugh at yourself in open source a little bit.
Sure.
In a nice way. We're not laughing at you, but laughing
No, yeah.
with you.
Yeah, I mean, you also have to see that different people get different things from different pieces of software,
Yeah.
and that's great.
Anyways,
All right, so then we're doing the great search that we do as well.
Okay.
You'll have to remember this one, because it's probably not going to loop either.
right. So this one, I remember what this was. So we use the AON 7401 P-channel power MOSFET 8DFN format for many of our boards as a P-channel pass-through or polarity tester or load switch or whatever. And it is end of line, and we have enough to last us a couple months, but we're going to have to find another chip. And so since I had to do it anyways, I thought I'd do it on the Great Search, how to find a compatible MOSFET in the same package, which is not, you have to be a little sneaky. You have to know how to use the parameters to make sure you get something as good or better. And I talked about a couple of the parameters that I think are the most important. Of course, your parameters may vary. And how to parameterize and document your schematics so you don't get screwed over later when you have to find a replacement and you're like, what was the parameter that was important? Is it capacitance? Is it RDS on? Is it threshold voltage? Is it VGS max? Document that stuff. So this was a twofer. Great
Okay.
search.
JP's Workshop and JP's Product Pick. Product Pick is every Tuesday. This week, JP's Product Pick of the Week. Take it away, JP.
Ugh. The prop maker Feather Wing. The prop maker is plugged into a Feather M4, and then I've got a strip of NeoPixels running right there. I'm just using this little speaker here, which is nice and compact. I'm powering this by battery right now. I plugged in a switch. I actually used a little mechanical key switch and soldered to one of our little sockets there onto the sort of built-in switch output. So when that gets grounded, and that'll turn my laser pointer here on and off. The other thing I'm doing on here is I'm using the tap detection. So every time I tap it, I am playing a sound effect as well as switching my NeoPixel colors to something random, and you can see here it responds really quickly. That is the product pick of the week. It is the Prop Maker Featherwing.
And on Thursdays on JP's workshop, we do CircuitPython Parsec. Take it away again, JP.
For the CircuitPython Parsec today, what I wanted to talk about is list slices. What are list slices? List slices are a way inside of Python to talk about a subset of a list. And in this case, it's a really convenient way to cast one set of a list to the values of the same list in a different section. I'm doing this to do this neat little rotating NeoPixel thing you can see here. I have a Circuit Playground Blue Fruit, and I'm diffusing it. And what you can see in my code is that I'm bringing in time, board, and NeoPixel. I'm also bringing in my color helper class from my JP Colors module, pixels 0, 4, and 7. I'm setting those to cyan, magenta, and amber. Then, in my loop here, I grab that color of the first NeoPixel, that's pixel 0, and I cast that to a variable called firstPixelColor. Then, this is the little list slice section. Pixels 0:9 is going to give me the first 8 pixels, because it's up to but not including the last number there. And I'm going to make that equal to 1 pixel lower. So it essentially grabs the pixel right in front of it and takes its value. So that's what shifts the colors. And then since we have a gap there between the first and the very last, I grab the initial color there, that first pixel color, and I assign that to pixel number 9. You can actually watch in my serial view here as the colors just kind of wind their way up and they loop around to the bottom thanks to that first and last line there. But it's a pretty neat way to, instead of using a for loop or for inside of a range loop, you can, in a very concise bit of code here, move all of these values from a different section of the list to a new section of the list. And so that's how you can use list slices inside of CircuitPython. And that is your CircuitPython Parsec.
All right, and then Deep Dive with Scott, that's on Friday. You did a Deep Dive with Scott during the CircuitPython day, right?
No, a couple months ago.
No, was it the Great Merge?
Yeah.
Was it the Great Merge?
You're really putting me on the spot
I
here
am.
with that one.
I forgot.
It was just fun, and we hung out online, and
We heard
talked
about
to
it,
people.
though, wherever, like, I tuned in, because usually these happen during our State of the Fruit meeting. But folks said that was a really good one.
Yeah.
Like, Jeff is really good. So this was when we were doing stuff with MicroPython and integrating.
Which we're still doing,
Yeah.
and we're going to do again very soon, because they came
Yeah, they
out
should
with a
have
new version.
1.7, right? 1.17 or
Right.
something?
I think
Yeah.
that's the number.
Okay.
So this Friday, tune in for Scott's Deep Dive. You never know. Jeff might be there. All right, time travel. Look around the world, makers, hackers, artists, engineers. We're skipping the jobs board this week. I'll put up the job that we feature, but just a heads up, one just came in, we approved it. It's for Black & Decker. They want people who know like IoT and like all
Wow.
these chips, which
Cool.
makes a ton of sense, right?
Yeah,
Like
of
that's what you'd
course.
expect it to be. So check it out at jobs.adafruit.com. But we'll feature it next week. So today, if you looked at our website, we have a little the Adafruit flower is now the little Star Trek communicator. It's Star Trek Day. Happy Star Trek Day.
Happy Star Trek Day.
I'm going to use a little bit of time because, from what I understand, you partake in the Star Trek.
Well, I mean, I grew up with reruns of TOS
Okay.
on the TV, and yeah, I always hoped that my ears would turn pointy someday soon,
Do you-
and my true people would come and find me.
Do you have
Did you go to
here-
conferences and stuff? Like
No.
cons? Okay.
No.
Here, you found us.
I did. I don't know.
So do you have a favorite series out of all of them? Enterprise doesn't count. We all agree on that.
The one that I rewatched most recently was DS9, and
Okay.
I feel like a lot of that is much more rewatchable for me personally
Yeah.
than TOS or TNG, and I didn't get into Voyager at the time, so I really liked Picard.
Yeah.
I liked how they're kind of looking at what does it mean when you become a little bit older, which I'm not old like Picard, and you feel people around you are abandoning the
Yeah.
ideals, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah. Like you,
and so those themes.
you set the
yeah.
Federation up. Here's the values. Keep going. Keep being good to people. Then you leave. You retire, and you're like, what's going on
Yeah.
there? What's going on in the
Yeah,
Federation?
so
Yeah.
we've got to do something and get back to our ideals, and
Yeah.
hopefully that's what Picard season 2 will do a little bit of. We'll see.
Yeah. Supposedly there's gonna be Borgs in it, and there's a few other things I'm looking forward to. DS9 is one of the ones that it's not good news. It was
No.
like one of the grittier ones. There is a funny Twitter account. It's Gold Ducat, and today he said Happy Gold Ducat Day because
Okay.
he's always making fun of like the Federation. Was there any particular character in DS9 that you liked?
I mean, Dax was a great character.
Yeah.
Odo was a great character.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them, I can't say.
Yeah, there's a few of us here at there's a lot of us here at Ada who like Star Trek, and I think we've all settled on Sisko was the best captain, but not for the reasons you think.
Okay,
Like,
what's the reason?
so the reason is he actually is like, he didn't do a great job in some of these things. He was the most human one. He's like, okay, like I'm gonna go and I'm gonna blow up stuff. I'm gonna get in a fight. I have to protect the Federation. Like
Yeah.
he really they gave him a job and he did it against the Dominion. So I thought that was a pretty big story arc.
Yeah.
Like these weren't perfect people.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
yeah.
But they were people with that core of caring for each other, like we were talking
Yeah.
about earlier, which is super important.
Yeah. So, anyways, I thought that it was good to mention because this is one of the shows that I think a lot of people watch here in our community and everything. Also, Star Trek has such like good moral lessons, and I was telling this story because I'm going to be reading the book by Anne Sterling, Rod Sterling's daughter, and there was a quote that I saw, and I'm just like, oh, that hit home. It's like if you want to like really teach people about racism and bigotry, just put it on another planet. And I think Star Trek did that really good.
Yeah.
And we're living through.
They didn't
a
always
lot
hit a
of-
home run,
Yeah.
but they
Pioneered a lot
tried
of
a lot.
Okay. Anyways, happy Star Trek Day.
Happy Star Trek Day.
Oh,
AdaBox.
off-cam.
So we're gonna run out of AdaBoxes.
Subscribe. We only have a couple dozen more slots.
Yeah.
It will be the Halloween box, and then we'll have the Christmas box. These tend to sell out.
Yeah.
We usually have a couple extra slots open in the first quarter box, the one in March, but the last two of the year, because of the way people do gift subscriptions, they tend to have them through the end of the year. So
Yep.
do sign up. Canada and America are available, and then we're doing a better job of whatever we have in AdaBox. A couple months later, it's in the shop. So
Yep.
if you do miss out, you always get it, but you won't get it for the holiday or event.
All right. Calls live notes every single, unless it's a holiday. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. You can tune in column notes. Here is one of them from this week.
When you need a quick custom-sized board for prototyping, some single-sided perforated board can be cut with scissors, which is nice. But it's surprisingly easy to resize thicker and double-sided boards as well. First, measure and mark the desired size, then score the board with a ruler and utility knife along the perforated holes. It doesn't have to be too deep, just a couple firm passes should do. If you're removing a substantial piece, you can simply press the board against a table at an angle, and the one piece will become two. For thinner strips, you can place the board in a table vise and bend along the seam. Either way, the process is literally a snap.
All right, it's Python on hardware time.
Woohoo!
That's your favorite.
Yeah. It
All
is.
right, first up, big news. We are up to 9,000 subscribers on the Python on Microcontrollers newsletter. Yay!
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 It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people,
And the number keeps going up, which is good. More people are subscribing than
That's right.
unsubscribing.
You can
and-
unsubscribe?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, you can unsubscribe
Yeah, you can
Oh.
subscribe.
anytime you want.
Wow.
Just at the
It's
bottom, click
it's a
unsubscribe.
separate website called adafruitdaily.com, and the reason we did that is we never wanted anyone to accuse us of using their store account for a newsletter account. That's how crazy we are about privacy and permissions and all that. So anyone can go there. We don't really market the newsletter. It's like word of mouth, and people are like, oh, I like Python, I like hardware, or they're seeing their projects in there. So we're up to 9,000. This week in the newsletter, Jeff, some of your stuff is in here. So we're up to the CircuitPython 7 release candidate 1.
Yeah.
You did the QR code stuff in it.
Got a lot of camera stuff
Camera
in there.
stuff.
That's
Camera
all
stuff.
new since 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Bluetooth low energy. Scott's doing a bunch of that. The camera support on ESP32S2.
That's you.
What is that all about? What can you do with it?
So you can record JPEG images to an SD card. You can display images from a camera live on an LCD. You can just decode some QR codes. If you can figure out other things to do with Microlab to process the images, you could do image effects. We are going to explore that soon, I think. I just haven't done a lot of it myself.
Yeah, we're on vacation right now because you're here.
Yeah.
But when we get
I'm
back,
on vacation.
we'll probably get back to it. But it's also not even just ESP32S2. It's also RP2040. And I think you did get
SAMD
SAMD51.
51 does work to an extent. It works with one of the two camera models we've been looking at, but not the other.
Okay.
And while Jeff was visiting, we bought, we showed this on Desk of Ladyada.
Yeah.
We bought this camera, and I was going to say buy it, and I'm just like, well, I should just give it to you so you can play around with it here. And it's a hardware camera. It doesn't have a view screen. It has a 4-way switch. It's a circuit board. You can see it, and it has like some neat filtering things and stuff like that. So we
it's
thought
got like 4 filter modes. I took it to the Met and took pictures in the Met with it, so that was
Cool.
kind of fun. It's a
cool.
different experience to rewind back to when we didn't have a screen on our camera and you don't check everything.
Yeah, you don't have a screen. It's
right
like,
away.
and later on when you look at your computer, it's like the film getting developed.
Yeah. It was fun. It was fun to have.
And so we're getting ideas on what we want to do for a camera, because you worked on the calculator. We have a ruler, and we have a number pad. We have keyboard stuff. So maybe the next thing.
What are other electronic objects we carry with us, and why can't we make them ourselves?
Yeah, thinking about like a mouse. There's a lot of things that we want to do that CircuitPython can
We
power.
could do, we did the MagTab. We could do an e-ink reader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's
Well,
Joey's,
Joey did a lot of stuff in
we
that
can-
area.
Yeah, he won the Hackaday contest. We still have to make at least some of those boards.
Yeah, we got COVIDized.
So,
All right, so that's RC1 is out. Please,
Yeah.
please test it. A lot of stuff happened in 7. It's actually I think our biggest release. So much stuff went in, which is good. We fixed a lot of bugs. We, caught up to MicroPython, all that extra stuff. We updated GCC. We updated board support, SDKs. A whole lot went in.
new MicroPython release. We are continuing on the Great Merge. In fact, that's what this poster is. You can see this is the 2 snakes together. So that's going on. Play MP3s on Raspberry Pi with Pico with CircuitPython. You worked on MP3
I worked
playback.
on some of the code. Ketney did a great guide, though.
So if someone wanted to make a music player with Adafruit hardware and CircuitPython, could they do it now?
We actually have one in the learning system with PyGamer.
But now you can do it on RP2040,
Now
which
you
we
can do
didn't
it.
think that you
Yeah.
could do. The reason we didn't write this guide before is we thought that we wouldn't have enough processor speed to decode MP3s because it doesn't have a DSP.
Right.
So we were like, oh, can you really do it without DSP? But
There are limits. You need a 64 kbit per second or lower MP3 file.
Yeah, but
it still sounds. I mean,
for
they sound
audiobooks or very simple sound effects, it's tenth of the size of a WAV file. And a lot of people do have MP3s, and it works quite well. Even with PWM out, I just think it's super cool. You can just play MP3s. I mean, it's just funny how hard that is to do on a microcontroller usually. And this is literally 2 commands in the REPL, and it plays instantly.
Yeah.
Super rad. Through I2S or PWM.
I do see a lot of people saying, I wish I could just play MP3s again. Because if you just drag and drop an MP3 on your phone, or try to, you can't anymore. Everything's a streaming service,
Right.
everything's a subscription thing. Just trying to get an MP3 from one thing to the other, if you have young people and you don't want them going through the YouTube algorithm forever, and you want to just play music. So I think that's a pretty big feature, and I think we have a couple products that I think would make a neat music player. We'll talk about that later. So I wanted to add a little time, because this is usually the segment we have a standalone video, and this is kind of a rare and unique opportunity. So I wanted to ask our engineers here. So you've been working on CircuitPython for a while. Ladyada, you've been doing CircuitPython stuff for a while. Jeff, what are some of the things that you would like to see in CircuitPython? We have a few months of the year, but of course, next year, what are some of the stuff you want to have?
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a good answer to that because you need a project idea, and then you go find the project is not feasible, and that's when
And then you
need
make
to
all
add
the code for it,
something.
like a camera.
Like a camera, yeah. You couldn't write lines of Python code to interface with a camera. A project I have on my mind, I did a lot of generative text stuff back in the day, and to put that on a standalone display instead of
Oh, that'd be cool.
on a computer monitor would be fun.
Yeah.
So I've got some old code I want to take that's Python 2 code and just see if I can bring it onto CircuitPython. And if not, what do we need?
Yeah, that's cool.
So that's something
That's
I have
actually
on
a
my
lot
short
of, like,
list.
I saw like at exit and get past, like some modules that we added were or like, oh, we need bytes for hex, whatever. It's like,
Yeah,
if somebody's
there's a
like,
lot
I
of
have this
little
code I'm
things.
porting, and it's like, that's not in there. Okay, let's add it.
All right. You got any other things on your wish
That's
list?
all I got off the top of my head.
Ladyada, what do you want to see in CircuitPython coming up soon?
Well, we're actually going to delete the whole project and start over with Circuit Perl, where we port Perl to microcontrollers.
Oh no.
No, just kidding.
Oh,
I know. I like Perl 4. But I didn't like Perl 5, so what are you going to do?
oh, you started hitting Perl before it was cool to hate Perl.
No, I hated Perl exactly when it was cool to hate Perl, which is Perl 5, because everyone loved Perl, that it was like you could do anything, and then they're like, we're going to do object-oriented, and people are like, what are you doing? That's not what I wanted. I wanted macaroni and cheese. I don't want this, like,
Yeah.
fancy meal. I think CircuitPython 8, we're going to support ESP32S3, so that's coming up.
Chips.
In fact, we got, maybe before we leave, we'll go downstairs. Espresso just sent me the dev board.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to give you one.
Oh, boy.
Haha, sucker. And then,
It's work.
it's work. No, but it's fun work. And then, we're going to get back to the IMX stuff, which we had to pause because there's a silicon shortage and there's no IMX chips. And then I want to do a little bit with concurrency, and let's see what we can figure out with async IO, because we've caught up to MicroPython. We do actually have async IO support now, but I don't know if it works. Nobody does. I'd like to find out, and especially as we're doing more BLE workflow, we might have Wi-Fi over the air workflow. I think having async could be useful. I think interrupts maybe, they do not mesh with CircuitPython at all. But I think async could solve a lot of those problems.
And if you come from a JavaScript world, you've probably already had to learn async and kind of internalize that model, which I have not.
Yeah, the thing is what I think is interesting about CircuitPython is we have a lot of trained computer scientists on the core team, which means that we're all like, we don't want threading. Like, it's kind of like a nightmare to us. Which is why we went so far. Like, we're all kind of like, we don't want to do this. But I think with 8, I think we're kind of getting to the point where we could really start. We've kind of like touched on it and gotten some ideas, but I think we now have enough processor time to really
Something to look
do
forward
it.
to.
All right. And if Circuit Perl isn't your thing, Circuit COBOL,
Yeah.
yes.
There's a whole
I think
list
Circuit
of them.
Perl could be kind of cool. But
All
we have
right.
regular expressions in CircuitPython, which is I think is awesome, by the way. That's
Yeah,
another thing.
they're a little limited, but
No, you can do matching and like everything. I mean, could you have an idea how hard it is to do an Arduino? It's a total nightmare.
okay.
Well,
I
it'll be
believe
cool
you.
to look back on this a year from now.
Did we do any of those things?
Did we get any of this done? That's why this is. It's always good to have guests on the show and talk about stuff. So we'll rewind around next year.
Circuit
Yeah.
Perl.
All right.
If anyone can make it happen.
That's Python on Hardware News.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, we're an open source hardware company. To prove it, we certified hundreds of boards.
Hundreds.
And we're currently one of the top certifiers of
some
open source hardware. And we have
guides.
2,534 guides. Ladyada, what are the guides on the big board this week?
Okay, Carter updated the Raspberry Pi Zero headless guide to have even more tips and tricks. As people post in our forums with like stuff that isn't working on their Raspberry Pi, we figure out what it is that isn't working. We add it to our troubleshooting guide so other people can learn from our discoveries. Also have a new guide for our round rack display, the 1.7-inch display. That's by Melissa and Kattni, teamed up to do a starter guide with Arduino and CircuitPython code. And all the way to the left, there is a new guide from Liz, Noah, and Pedro. They are taking a feather sense and turning it with CircuitPython into a wireless mouse. Of course, you can do like keyboards and other stuff too, but we thought it would be kind of interesting maybe for accessibility or like, wireless interfacing, using the sensors built in on the feather sense, the proximity sensor and the accelerometer /IMU to do motion sensing. Actually, that's something we should do. We should add IMU support to CircuitPython.
Oh, yeah. What's missing?
You have to do it in C in the background because it
There's
has
the calculating stuff.
it has to. No, well, it has to happen on a regular
okay.
basis. So you do have to have either a separate
Yeah.
or you have to have like data.
Yeah,
Streaming
I
in.
bet the keyboard background stuff that Dan did would lay some good foundation.
Yeah,
for that.
it's a little bit like that. You have to do it every 10 milliseconds or so.
Yeah, we could do something every 10 milliseconds.
Yeah, 10 milliseconds forever.
Okay. That's with the guides.
That's right.
All right. Let's do some factory footage.
And then
Okay.
And it wouldn't be New York City factory footage unless you could see the building across the street. Jeff, you got to see it close
I
up.
did, yeah. And, I take a little bit of interest in it because my old job was with a company that made software for steel building design. So,
Here it is.
I can look at it and understand a little about what's going on.
This is your
Yeah.
code.
It might be, it might not be. But, yeah, let's say that it was.
I worked on ATM software that was in the McDonald's down the street for years, and every time I would walk by, the ATM machine was broken, so I didn't feel so good about that. Anyways, better than building collapsing that.
Yeah.
All right, 3D printing. This week we have a speed up, and it's relevant, especially if you're keeping up to date with the what ifs from Marvel,
Yes.
because last week was Doctor Strange. Today is the zombies.
Zombies.
So let's see what last week's what if inspired
Inspired.
Noah and Pedro
Yes.
to do for a speed up. All right, and don't forget 3D Hangouts every single Wednesday at 11 a.m. with Noah and Pedro. Check it out. All right, Ladyada. Before we go over to INMPI, a little reminder: Tower Lights code. Whoop whoop whoop. That's a Tower Light sound. Let's do.
Doesn't know what it sounds like, but it's close enough.
Let's do some INMPI.
Okay.
Okay, this week's INMPI brought to you by DigiKey and Adafruit. Thank you, DigiKey. Is from Onsemi. Ladyada, what is the INMPI this week?
Yes, this week's also, I want you to note, the new Onsemi logo change was a green circle. This is our new logo. It's quite nice. They've also now gone all lowercase. So
Do you like this one better?
I kind of do. I dig it. I like how they're going all lowercase. How can you argue with that?
We had an idea for a game, and it was going to be logos and names of electronic companies, and you have to guess if it's real or not. I also think there's probably an opportunity to look at all the electronic companies are starting to redo their logos. I think everyone is like, we got this budget
It's just
now.
time.
It's budget time. We got this thing. So onsemi, new logo, and what is the product that they're into?
So this week we're doing the eFuse portfolio from onsemi. They actually have a couple different products. I think it's the NS54XX series. We'll show you a screenshot of all the different options because there's quite a few. But eFuses are kind of neat. I've actually never used an eFuse like this before, so I actually learned a lot while researching this INMPI, and these are kind of cool. So normally when people think about fuses, you picture something like this, a glass or ceramic cylinder with two metal posts on the end. Inside is a wire. These are really great for detecting and stopping overcurrent. Like if you have a short circuit or something got damaged, before too much current passes through your electronic device, possibly causing a fire or permanently damaging the device, you have this fuse, which the wire inside is kind of calibrated so it will burn out after 1 amp or 2 amps or whatever current. The fuse burns out and you can see the wire broken, you know to replace it. A lot of people have, you have your kitchen appliances, your microwave, stereos. They still often have, especially older ones, they'll have glass or ceramic fuses like this. We have multimeters have fuses that I've had to replace. So they're still used. They do a great job. They're extremely reliable. You can buy them anywhere. They're super cheap. And one thing that is kind of good, although it kind of drives users a little nuts, is when it blows, it's permanent. It blows open and that's it. So you're like, the thing doesn't turn on. You have to remember to look at the fuse. If you don't want to have that, if you want to have something that it doesn't have to have a physical thing replaced each time, and also these glass fuses, they're kind of large and bulky. A lot of electrical engineers use polyfuses. So these are a conductive, thin layer of material that as more current goes through it, it heats up, and eventually the resistance increases to a point where basically no current can flow through because it's like a huge amount of resistance. And then as the resistance resistance increases, the current drops, the amount of power dissipated drops, and then it slowly comes back to room temperature, and the resistance drops, and it reopens. So it's kind of the opposite of those glass fuses in that when this trips, it opens the connection, basically disconnects the two pins, but it will self-heal, right? It'll sometime later, 5 minutes later work, which is why a lot of people are like, oh, did your USB port stop working, or something in your computer stop working? Turn off everything, unplug it, wait 5 minutes, and turn it back on. That's what usually fixes it. Is you remove whatever the short is, you wait 5 minutes, it comes back down to temperature, the fuse resets, and you're good to go. You'll see, we actually use basically this fuse in a lot of our stuff. Here's the Adafruit Metro, which has a microcontroller board, and you see there a handy red arrow pointing to the green polyfuse. And this is, basically it's there to protect your computer, your hub, or your power supply when you plug it into USB and then you attach like 5 servo motors to the 5-volt pin and you're like trying to draw 4 amps through your USB port, your computer's unhappy. This just, kind of protects your computer's USB port. The power will go out on the Metro. 5 minutes later, of course, it'll come back to life, and maybe you'll learn not to connect 4 servos. And this is the characteristic curve of this polyfuse. So you'll see, depending on which product, the amount of current that you're passing through, how long it takes for it to trip. And you'll see it is dependent on, of course, ambient temperature and how much current. These are not super fast. They take 10 milliseconds to a second or two to trip. There's fast blow, slow blow, you can always get those details, but these are very analog. It's completely dependent on the thermal properties of that poly material in the center. Okay, so the eFuses, like the NIS5420, and again, there's a bunch of these. These are fully electronic fuses, and they perform a lot of the functions of the polyfuses or glass/ceramic fuses, but they do a lot more. So the thing about glass fuses and those polyfuses is that they're really good for overcurrent protection. So if you're drawing too much current, they'll open up and save your device. But what they don't do is they don't protect against polarity. So if you have the wrong polarity, they don't protect about overvoltage. If you have too high a voltage or too low a voltage, they won't protect you. They don't do slew rate. So if your current bursts in too fast, they don't know how to slow it down. They're very, very simple. They're also really cheap. They're 10 cents. spend a little bit more in electronic fuse, and these are, they're analog electronics, but they do a lot more. So you can see inside, they have overvoltage clamping. Of course, they do overcurrent protection. They do undervoltage lockout, so if the voltage is too low, it won't kind of half connect, brown out your device. There's also current monitoring. There's slew rate setting, and a whole bunch of. So they basically do kind of everything. And what's nice is they sort of like work out of the box. They're very simple to use. So here's an example of the block diagram. VCC is power. Source is the what you want to connect your load to. There's a charge pump even for the P channel FET, so it can turn on, which is nice. It's high switching. I current limit you can set with an external resistor. DVDT is the slew rate, so how fast you want the voltage to rise. You set that with a resistor or capacitor. There's thermal shutdown, UV. Basically, there's all this stuff. It kind of does everything. So you don't need, a lot of your protection circuitry is usually made of multiple diodes and maybe Zeners and, PFETs and fuses. This kind of does everything at once. So two things I thought were kind of cool. Of course, it does everything you expect a fuse to, but I liked the V-clamp. So, it protects up to, I think, 18 volts, so it's not, forever. But if you have small spikes, like, you have maybe an inductive load or something on your system that has some inductance to it, so you're getting spikes on the power supply that spike up, this will nicely smooth it out for you by clamping. Of course, if it clamps too much, it will overheat and the E-fuse will blow. It won't be damaged, it'll just like open up the connection. But it'll take care of some, basic overvoltaging. Slew rate control, another thing, I don't usually use it, but I have seen some situations where people are like, I really want to slowly ramp up the voltage. I don't want to turn on too fast. I want things to sort of slowly come up, especially if you have like multiple power supplies and you want them to come up in order. So this will do slew rate control if you add a passive component to the device. They also come in multiple different sort of versions. So one thing is you'll notice there's 50-50 split between auto retry and sort of like, always off. So you can have a latching disable. So basically if it overheats or overcurrents, you have to remove power to reset it. And that's good when, if something happened, if there's some overvoltage, overcurrent failure, or thermal failure, you don't want it to kind of cycle on and off. You want it to just turn off, and the user has to go and perform some action to power cycle it. Or there's auto retry, which is more like a polyfuse, right? You overheat, you wait, cool down, and restart. There's also different undervoltage lockouts, V-clamps, and whether or not you have a current sensing mirror output, so you can check the voltage. There's a voltage that is it's like a volt per amp, whatever, multiplier of the current, and so you can externally monitor with an ADC how much current is being drawn by your system. There's also multiple different voltages. There's 3 volt, 5 volt, 12 volt, and I have 24 volt. So, they are hard coded for the voltage, which I think makes sense. These are designed for hard drives or computer cases, so, you want it to be on the 12 volt line. You don't want any risk of a passive component will change what the voltage limit is, or the undervoltage lockout, or the style. So there's some things that are controllable, but some things that are basically kind of like ROM set in the chip. So check out all the different varieties. A lot of them are in stock, so you'll just pick up whichever one you need.
All right. Available on DigiKey.
The one we're featuring today is it's the very latest one. It's the NIS 5420, which is the 12 volt version in stock, and pretty cheap. For about $1, you can have a really nice.
Almost 3,000 in stock.
That's a lot.
Which is more than most things.
Yeah. Well, I want to make IMP. I want to make sure it's in stock. But so there you go. I think this is cool. So I might make a breakout for one of these chips because they look very handy.
All right. We have a little video about a minute or so. Do you want to play that?
Yeah, let's play the video and we'll.
Hi, my name is Andrew Niles, and I am an applications engineer at ON Semiconductor. Today I'll be covering the comparison of an eFuse to a PTC, as well as a short demonstration of the eFuse features. An eFuse is an integrated circuit with many features, and a PTC is a special type of resistor which has a positive temperature coefficient. Two important eFuse features are that they provide a fast current limit response time and on-off control with their enable pin. In this demo, I will show the eFuse responding to short circuits and providing PWM dimming for an LED circuit. The eFuse shown here today is the NIS 5021, a new 12 volt, 12 amp eFuse. First, I'll demonstrate what happens when there is a short circuit. Setting the switch to eFuse mode, we will press the output short button. The short circuit being generated is a chattering short generated by a microcontroller. Due to the fast response of the eFuse, the 12 volt input voltage rail does not go down. It's also important to note the level of current. Right now the current is 10 amps per division. For comparison, we will also do the short circuit with the PTC. When a short circuit occurs, they heat up and transition from a low resistance state to a high resistance state. Since the PTC must wait for heating, the response time is significantly slower than the eFuse. There is a larger amount of current, which causes the voltage on the power rail to go down.
And that's this week's Eye on MPI.
Thanks, everybody.
Eye on MPI.
Okay, Ladyada, before we go over to new products, Tower Light.
Yeah.
Tower light.
That's the code. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Well, let's do this.
New.
All right. Well, first up, we have these lights.
Okay. So, yeah, we got a couple of alarm lights. So this one I'm actually going to hold up and demo because it's really loud and annoying, and so I thought that would be really good to do.
Oh, yeah?
Well, it's not that loud and annoying.
Okay.
But so here's how this works.
I can't hear anything.
Well, I haven't made it loud and annoying yet. It's just flashy and annoying.
Okay.
So inside here, there's like a square piece of, there's 4 pieces of PCB in a square. And so it kind of looks like it's rotating, but it's just like, it just lights up the LEDs in the order of the square. So it doesn't have any mechanical rotating thing, which I think is good because it means it's not going to fail on you. Although it doesn't have that cool mirror reflective, cop car sort of alert thing. That said, this has both the rotating LEDs, so you just power it. There's no speed control. And there's a knob, and when you turn the knob up, it will start making incredibly annoying sounds. Very annoying. Thank you.
That's what New York sounds like when you're trying to sleep at night.
It's pretty much, this is like your little New York in a box. You just want all the annoyance of having constant sirens. Go ahead. But it's really good. I like the simplicity of this. It's got 3 mounting screws on the bottom. They're M4s. It's got the piezo. I like that there's an on-off and volume knob. So if you can change however loud you want it, and you just give it 3 to 12 volts, whatever. It has a little regulator inside, and it just does its thing. So if you want to control this from a microcontroller, you'll need a transistor, an N channel or whatever transistor. To turn this on or off because there's no control pin. You basically just add or remove power and you're good to go. That said, we see people's projects where they want to have an alert or alarm. This is the only thing I've seen that has this look and is 3 or 5 volt compatible. You can just power it from 3 or 5 volts, which is wonderful because most of our tower lights are 12 volts. This one, very easy to use.
All right. Speaking of tower lights.
And can be loud and annoying or not. Okay.
This is a tower light we were talking about.
This is another tower light. So this tower light is interesting because it is a tower light with a USB connector. And usually tower lights come with 12 volts, power pins basically, and you can literally just turn on the LED elements. This is a little bit more expensive because it's completely plug and play, and there is something to be said about this. If you want to do no wiring, no soldering, no microcontroller work, you plug this into USB, shows up as a serial port, and then you just open it up as a COM or serial port with Pi serial or mini COM or screen or whatever. You send, there's a couple different bytes, and the bytes will turn on the red, yellow, or green LED, and it also does have an annoying buzzer, although I don't have it set up here.
Everything should just be a serial port when you plug it in. That's
cool.
This
is, it's nice because it's ready to go. There is something said for people who, they want to have a tower light, they want to be controlled by a computer or a Raspberry Pi or something with a USB port, and they do not want to deal with a 12-volt power supply. They don't want to deal with P-channel FETs. They don't want to deal with
It'd be good to have with a Raspberry Pi.
Super easy to connect
Yeah.
with a Raspberry Pi, and it's a very solid, well-built tower light. I really like the
Do
construction.
you want to show it?
Hold it up real
Okay.
fast. And then if I plug it in, it'll beep. So I think let's try doing that. Here, can you hold, fine, nice assistant.
It's gonna beep.
Maybe hold it in here.
It's gonna beep.
Thank you. Yeah, so when you plug it in, it just does that alert beep.
That's how you know it works.
So that's how you know how
Okay.
loud it is. Yeah,
All right.
really annoying.
No.
Very nice. So it also has a blinking mode, but I added some Python PySerial code to show it off. You can just loosen the screw and you can have it like tilt up. You know, there's a little tilt, and then it has four mounting
screws at the
holes.
bottom?
Yeah,
That's good.
super. I don't know.
Handy.
It's all in one. Again,
Yeah.
no coding, require no microcontroller, no nothing.
All right, next up.
Okay, if you like the macro pad and you're like, that's a nice OLED, I really like that OLED has a little plug-in thing, you don't have to solder it. We have just the OLED available. Also, some people crack their OLED screens, maybe they want a replacement. This OLED is an SH1106G 128 by 64 monochrome pixel OLED display. And the reason I really like this and why we've used this one is it has a plug-in FPC connector. So this made the AdaBox possible because we didn't have to hand solder 4,000 or 5,000
Yeah.
OLED screens. We just plugged them
Pops
in
in,
and popped them
pulls
on. So you do need to. This is just the OLED. You do need to add circuitry to it. It's controlled by SPI only. It does not have I2T available because if it was, I would have used it. Check out the MacroPad PCB files for the wiring because you do need a bunch of capacitors, a couple of resistors, and you will need to supply it with 9 to 12 volts DC using a little boost converter for the OLED biasing. It does not have a built-in booster.
Next up.
Okay, so now we have a couple of components that are a little bit weird. People are like, why'd you put some LSM 9DS zeros in the store? We haven't used this chip in actually years, but we were doing some cleaning out here, and we were like, oh, we found a reel, or not a full reel, but some chips on a reel of this 9DS zero. And I was like, normally I would toss these out. It's a couple $100 worth of chips, but like, what am I going to do with them? Because we don't make the breakout anymore. But I was like, with the chip shortage, there could be people who really want this chip and they can't get it. So you get one on a piece of cut tape in a bag, ready to go. You can't buy these anymore. So if you happen to need this part, we have this part available. It works just fine.
While supplies last.
Yeah.
Also, yes, after it's
Next.
gone, it's gone.
Next up.
We also have these SMD navigation switches. They're 5-way navigation switches, so it's up, down, left, right, no diagonal, and then button press in. And this is the SMT version. We also have a through-hole version. This is the SMT version. We've used it in multiple bonnets and hats and whatnots. It has a little pointy nubbin that you use your finger with to push it around. It's just a nice way if you want to add a user interface, but you don't want it larger than like one button. You don't have to add 5 buttons. You just have this.
All right, more chips.
We also found some TLC 551s. These are very nice versions of the NE 555 triple nickel 555 timer chip. What I like about this particular version is 1, it's DIP, so you can use it in a breadboard, solder to it easily. 2, it is using a CMOS process, and so you can run it down to 1 volt, which means you can run it on a AA or AAA battery. You don't need 5 volts or 9 volts or even 3 volts. So we use this in the Drawdio because it'll run off of a single AAA, which I think is super cool to have such low voltage electronics. And you can also run it up to 2 megahertz. It also has, I think, 100 milliamp sync. I mean, this is like the Cadillac of 555s. It's a little bit more expensive than the NE 555, but it's, like I said, super fancy. And it is a drop-in pin replaceable for any 555 without having to worry about voltages or TTL levels and all that nonsense.
All right. More chips.
We also found a bunch of FT232BLs. Boy, these are a little old, but they still work quite well. We used to use these in some of our microcontroller designs. The Zoxbox used this chip as well. There's people who probably have designs that they're making that use this chip, and we figured, again, normally we would toss them. But since there's people who could use them, why not put them in the shop? We're selling them for less than I paid for them.
It's hard to toss chips right now because every day is like,
I know,
what about these
I
chips?
felt-
All
I
the
felt
questions
such
in the
guilt.
chat tonight have been like, tell me about the chip shortage. When's it going to end?
I don't know. But if your chip shortage is for the FT232BL, you
You're
are
okay.
in luck. You can pick them up as a 10-pack in the shop. And
Yeah.
they come on, these are loose, they come in a cut tape strip when you order them.
All right, this is not a chip.
Not a chip. All right, now we're moving on to new products. So this is a adjustable 24-volt power supply, and I really like these because you don't necessarily need a benchtop supply. You just want something with adjustable voltage so you can power a 5-volt thing, a 12-volt, 9-volt, 24-volt thing. Instead of just getting one brick for every voltage, this one does them all. So let's
This
put
is
it
handy.
overhead, and I'll show a little demo. Lock on the focus. Okay, so you've got on the end your standard 5.5 outer diameter, 2.1 millimeter inner diameter, DC positive tip polarity plug. And then here you've got this little knob all the way to the bottom. It's 3.3 volts, and then as you dial it up, the voltage follows until you get all the way to 24 volts. So that's what you get. It's about 1-ish amp out, but you can adjust what voltage you want. And I love the little display. That's so nice. I think these are so cute. We also have a version that does 3 amps, but only goes up to 12 volts, and that one's quite popular too. So pick and choose. If you want more current, get the 12-volt version. If you want the higher voltage, get this 24-volt version.
Next up.
Okay, marrying the stars of the show, which is a
Oh, right.
two-parter.
These are the two-part stars of the show.
Two-part.
Besides Jeff, besides you, Ladyada, besides
Hold on, we have to
our customers, besides the staff, besides the community,
Besides the tower light,
This is the star of the show. We have
Do you
to-
wanna-
Alert, star of the show.
That's the star of the show alert.
Yeah. Maybe we should keep this here forever, and then whenever
Yeah.
we do star of the show, we can turn this on.
Okay, so this is part 1 of star of the show.
Okay. This is a Zippy A&O rotary encoder, which is like, okay, let's be honest. It's basically a knockoff of the original Ipod Classic scroll wheel, like the mechanical scroll wheel, not the capacitive touch one. This is the original, like, luxurious, clicky scroll wheel version, which, eventually I think people, like, they got crumbs in it or something. I don't know, so they stopped making it these capacitive touch now. But at the time, this was amazing. So this is a rotary encoder.
You want
I'm gonna go back
to
to
this way, this way,
yeah.
this way.
So this rotary encoder, the center part with the little mini divots. I think it's like a 24. Each divot is a little a click. It's a you can feel the clicky rotary encoderness. It's got your standard 2-pin rotary encoder output, and then it's got the center button, up, down, left, right. It's actually a little bit like that nav switch we were showing earlier, but this has got a rotary encoder in the center as well. Only thing about it, really annoying. Look at the bottom. The pins are in like totally weirdo locations. It's, you can solder wires to them. The pads are quite large. But if you want to make it easier on you, you could grab our breakout board. And when you solder this to the breakout board, it makes it so easy to use because it gives you a line of headers with 0.1 inch spacing. So I just kind of did that work for you, and you see soldered on, and you're golden.
It's a pair.
It's a pairing. It's a pairing. So it's very luxurious. You can show on the overhead.
Yeah.
This is the.
You want to make your own Nomad MP3 player? This is how you do it.
Basically. It's a little. It's a
Wanna make
little
your own
dark.
Zune?
click it.
Why this got so
Can I
dark?
click it?
Yeah, why don't you click it? There you go.
Isn't that nice?
Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah. Got a winner there.
Yeah. So, So as I rotate it, you can see the LED moving around, and it does make a little tactile click sound. Up, center, left, right, down. It comes in classic Adafruit black. In this case, I'm just plugging it right in and onto a feather. The buttons are, of course, just normally open buttons that, just use them as any GPIO inputs. And the rotary encoder, you'll need to use the rotary encoder support for your microcontroller because it uses the 2 pins in a kind of a gray code style thingy to know which way they were turned. But it is just a normal rotary encoder beyond that. So another nice navigation switch.
All right, and that is new products. All right, everyone likes these, by the way, the little wheel.
Oh, you know what? I figured out how to change the brightness. Wait, go back to your.
You want to go back?
Yeah, I want to.
Look how bright it is.
It's supposed to do auto brightness.
Yeah, not so bad.
It's so black.
Yeah,
It's not so. I mean, it's
comes in
it's-
Adafruit black.
It's goth, but okay. All right, this is a little better. All right, good for next week.
All right, cool.
Final answer.
All right. Well, if you were watching, you want to buy any of these things, including the Tower Light, you
Yeah.
can buy it. We're going to answer some questions. You can start loading them up over on Discord. It'll be the only place we're going to do questions. A couple that I remember from before.
Yeah.
Look, there's one here. But we're going to do some top secret first.
All right, open up the vault. And put your questions in while.
From the vault. Okay, so I'm going to show a video, and then we're going to talk about one of the new products that I teased on Twitter. I'm like,
Okay.
we're going to show this cool stuff. But here's the first one.
All right, Ladyada, what is this?
Hey, I'm testing out a new prototype I just put together. This is a 128 by 128 monochrome OLED display. It's a SH1107. There's a little bit of flickering, but it's not visible to humans. It's just the camera. And I'm testing it out both I2C, so this is with a STEMMA QT connector. So that's nice, easy to wire up, no soldering or breadboarding required. I'm also testing it out with a QT Py with SPI instead. SPI can be a lot faster, you can see, like really zooms through all the demo tests, but you need to do a little bit more wiring because you have to wire up all the SPI pins. So 2 ways to use this display. I kind of like the I2C, but you need a lot of speed, go with SPI. Coming soon.
Okay, and then the other top secret we have, this is a still photo, and then we're going to show the tester that we just did. So you're working on LCD glass. You're going to show these live tonight, or are we just going to do the video?
No, let's just do the video
Do the
because
video,
we
okay.
got to get to questions.
All right.
All right, Ladyada, what is this?
Hey, I'm putting my final touches on the LED glasses front panel. This is our CircuitPython test code. You're seeing this flicker here because it's kind of writing the ring and the matrix at the same time, and I'm not really doing proper double buffering yet. But it's just a good demo of showing all the LEDs. And then this is my tester. Which is an Arduino Uno with a little STEMMA QT connector on the end, so it's really fast. You can even test these before they get depanelized. Let's go. So, turning on all the LEDs, and then there's actually an internal test mode in this chip that I'm going to end up using. But for now, it's going to be basically like, do all the LEDs in each color light up? If so, that means the LEDs were placed properly and the multiplexer is working. So, soon to be in the shop with these cool silk screens.
Okay, coming soon to the store, and that is this week's top secret.
Shh, don't ask, it's not out yet.
Okay, we're doing questions. A couple lined up. All right, so first up, question, being an engineer, what kind of things would you look for after an electronic item came into contact with liquid? I had an unfortunate accident with a bottle of sanitizer, dripping quite a bit on the electric side of a pipe portal. Any tips? How will I deem it safe to continue to use unsupervised? Any risk?
I mean, you can use it unsupervised if there's nothing high voltage or high current there. I just let it really thoroughly dry off. Ironically, isopropyl alcohol is totally safe for electronics. It just needs to dry off completely, and then it should be okay. Just make sure it's really, even from underneath. So give it a good dry in.
All right.
Don't put it in your oven, though.
Next up, questions for Jeff. Any highlights from your trip to New York City so far?
The food. I mean, you can go get any kind of food you want. We went out for Indian-style breakfast this morning, my wife and I. We went to the Met, did a lot of the regular tourist
By the way, the
stuff.
food, you get total, like, you take it for granted instantly. Like, Phil and I are like, do we want like Ethiopian or we want Thai food? There's like 8 Thai restaurants, do we want French food tonight or like vegan Indian or...
Just sofa tea.
Yeah, it's like, we can have fusion. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's better at home. If I go out, I go to the Hub Cafe.
I know. I remember when I lived in Minneapolis and it was just like, well, you get a TGI Friday, so you can go to all of your lunch options was whatever was at the mall.
All right, next up. Any
Rainforest
thoughts on
Cafe.
making Rhapsody scroll wheel on a breakout and have I2C giving feedback? They'd pay extra.
I don't know what Rhapsody is. I'll check that out. I was going to make an I2C STEMMA QT board for this scroll wheel thing, but I had to start with the breakout first. This actually took longer to get out than expected because of some miscommunications.
All right. Does the mask controlled by an Arduino mean it doesn't have a microcontroller on board?
That's right, it doesn't. It's just an LED. It's basically our LED matrix, but just blown apart. Because the idea is that you would use this board with any microcontroller that you want, because some people want Wi-Fi, and some people want to use like an Arduino, whatever board you want. You use a CircuitPy, just plug it into STEM QT if you like. But the idea is to make it flexible instead of having it all in one.
Okay, the datasheet for the scroll wheel shows 24
D10s, but only 12
D10s,
cycles.
but 12 cycles. Does the rotary I/O library handle this half of?
Yeah, it works
cycle?
fine. It's all rotary encoder. It's plus or minus 1. It doesn't actually keep track of where it is in the circle when you use a library.
Next up, this is one for you, Jeff. Is there any way to protect code in CircuitPython where someone cannot copy the code from a commercial product that runs CircuitPython? I was thinking of getting rid of the USB connector and having some test points to program the board one time. Not 100% foolproof, but it is something. Any other ways? Thanks.
I don't think there's going to be a 100% foolproof way. When you put your code in the hands of somebody, they have that code in some form or other. So I think probably you need to figure out how to be at peace with that and find other ways to make your product valuable besides the source code. Then, there are things like the support and having an integrated product that works well.
Yeah. Someone suggested you could turn off USB. There's a lot of things you can do, but even a lockdown commercial product like the iPhone, like eventually these things get popped. So I wouldn't spend a ton of time on it, but not having a USB
you can
port.
disable USB to keep people from accidentally damaging it, but you're never going to protect. I mean, even the espresso chips, which have code protection, somebody cracked it with a glitching attack.
Yeah.
So
Super fun.
yeah.
Next up, the new Ultimate GPS module is the PA16160, but links to the PA01OD guide. I tried following the guide using the PA161, the new one, datasheet for pins.
Post in the forums. I think this is
Okay.
a technical support question.
Is the guide actually compatible? I couldn't get it to show up as I2C device, plus datasheet says I2C with custom firmware.
I think post in the forums for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any possibility of stocking panel mount YC8 compatible connectors?
I don't think there are any. If you know of any, send me a link. I'll take a look.
Okay, what was shown just a couple minutes ago? OLED, backlit buttons, and a rotator knob. Oh, that was our macro pad.
It's the macro pad.
Yeah, I'll show it for a second. That's it. This is a macro pad. It's cool.
It's our macro pad.
It is not Ziggy from the Quantum Leap, but it looks like it.
Yeah. We'll do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Next up, yes, you can still access the REPL, and you can write some code to dump the main code over serial. Yeah.
You can disable the REPL too.
There you go.
You can disable everything, and then you're really screwed if you can't get in. It's going to be tough. You
It's
can
true.
do it.
With Python 7, you can disable almost every feature of the USB without taking the USB connector off.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it.
And then you can take off the bootloader, and then there's no way to get in. I mean,
It can be really
still,
inconvenient.
They can still dump the code, but it's gonna be a challenge. You'll have to use like clips or something.
If they're that motivated, by the way, they're going to get whatever you do. They're going to get. Like,
That's
if they're that motivated. Next up, will a feather turn off if an attached LiPo hits too low voltage, or will it drain the cell to dangerous levels if you don't disconnect it?
All of our batteries have under voltage protection. If you're not using under voltage protection, eventually you'll hit the brownout. But I really, really do not recommend using batteries without under voltage protection circuitry on it, because it can blow up on you.
Do most of the boards that use USB-C just use USB 2.0?
Yes, we're only USB 2.0. I don't think we have any boards that have USB 3 support yet.
Okay.
It's still very new for
It
microcontrollers.
says the RP2040 is USB 1.1. That's could be.
No,
No? Okay. Nope.
no.
It's not. All right. I think we almost got through most of the questions.
Okay.
So I'm gonna call it. All right. Well, first up, thank you, Jeff, for coming out
So happy
to
to
the
be here.
show.
Thanks for showing me
and
around.
Thank you for
hanging
visiting.
out in New York City. Also, going through all the hoops that we have here in New York. You got your Vax Pass, you got
Yep.
Mass, you've been doing all that. So
Yep,
thanks
you
for
guided me to get the app, and
Yeah.
that was handy.
thanks for coming to New York as a tourist and seeing our cool city. We're recovering. It's
Yeah.
not. It's a fun place to visit, still, right?
Yeah.
Not so
Yeah, I
bad.
mean, even with a lot of people do come to New York and they want to go to Broadway or they want to see shows, and that's sort of starting up. But I like that you're like, there's a lot of stuff to do even now. The museums are open,
Yeah.
the parks are open, the restaurants are open, cafes are open.
Yeah, and when we travel, we walk a lot. So
Yeah. It's a great walking city. New York City is
a great walking city.
a great walking
I
city.
really didn't expect that.
No, it is the walking city. I think only Tokyo, is more walky.
Yeah, we walk everywhere.
Even Boston, I used to walk a lot in Boston. Boston is not, things are a little far in between
Last week,
sometimes.
Wednesday after the show, after I was done stopping some leaks, we walked through the peak rain storm, which was a hurricane. A little hard to walk, but it was still walkable. But the rain was just going sideways and up, so that was a little hard.
I'm so happy I missed that.
Yeah, good timing on your part. Okay, well, we're gonna have Jeff out again. Probably the CircuitPython team as like things start to recover and traveling can happen. We'll see. Hopefully, everyone will collectively look out for one another and make this pandemic go away. It's kind of up to the individuals, which is scary because I think everyone wants this over, but everybody has a choice on how fast it'll happen. So hopefully it'll be faster. Special thanks to Zay behind the scenes here tonight in our chat. Special thanks to Jeffler. Special thanks to all the team members here that are helping out with the chat this week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks to all of our staff and more.
Thanks to y'all for creating this place.
Yeah, not so bad, right?
It's real.
Not so bad. All right, we'll see everybody next week. Here is your moment of Zener.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.